on that piece of equipment that it's down for this reason. So it really is an explosive opportunity that exists there.
I actually have a CNC machine in Michigan that follows me. You want to go here and then here.
Debbie Altenberg with Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. I was sort of wondering, in working on the ITIF report, if you thought about time scale, because what I see sort of playing out possibly if we get enough congressional support and this gets launched, that it becomes something similar to what happened with the hubs at the Department of Energy, that maybe they only fund one a year or something like that. And I'm wondering if its usefulness dilutes at all if you're looking at 10 years to reach 15 or 25 centers.
Maybe.
Well, I guess I would say, yeah, the more we can do, the quicker, the better. You know, I suppose that's a common refrain in this building. But I do think I guess I would say the most important thing is sort of to do big individual institutes. I would hate to see them diluted into, you know, take the 40 million and spread it across 10. So I would rather have fewer bigger ones, but obviously I'd rather have, you know, more of those. So that's my thought on that particular question.
And I would just add to that, you know, if you compare this to say something like getting e-health transformed in the U.S., where we're making some progress, but not as much as we should. You know, the reality is, if we don't do it, the impact will be that our doctors don't go out of business and move to India. It just means that we just don't have as good a healthcare system, which is a problem. But you know, eventually you could still do it. I think we don't have a lot of time in manufacturing. I think we've got about another decade, and after that we reach what we would call in our book the British tipping point, where you get to a tipping point that the UK had, and you're very, very hard pressed to recreate this. So if we were to lose some of the advanced capabilities that Lockheed has, or that Boeing has, or that Intel has, very, very difficult to ever get those back. And the only way to get them back is by massive, massive government subsidies, which is inappropriate and not what we should do. So I think we don't have a lot of time, and if we don't do this now, along with other changes on the regulatory side, on the skill side, on the tax side, we could reach that tipping point. Yes, sir. And then here.
Hi, Andrew Steigerwald from Senator Brown's office. I have a comment and a question. The comment is piggybacking on the first question, actually. I think it's important for private industry to have a prominent voice in this, not just to get it funded, but so that if it does get funded, it really is a industry-driven effort. In my experience, universities tend to be more proactive in staking out ground in these types of activities. So that's just my comment. My question is, you touched on it briefly. How do you see IP issues playing out? Not just within the regional hubs, but network, or sorry, institute to institute. So for instance, you had the magnificent map that you made. You have solid black lines. You know, are those just symbolic, or is there real intellectual value going from institute to institute?
So, I mean, I think with respect to the intellectual property as a legal phenomenon, I think that's going to vary. I mean, we see industries having wide, you know, variation in how they use those tools, and I think it's going to be a knotty issue. I mean, I think we see it at the Advent Institute already. It's going to be hard to work out, and it's going to have to be worked out by the members, you know, from institute to institute. Now, there may be some learning that goes on as to how to manage that process, but I think it's going to have to vary. I don't know whether intellectual property will flow from institute to institute. You know, there may be some that are linked together, but I see those, you know, being more, you know, idea sharing. Or I guess I see the intellectual property is going to flow from the institute into the user. And that's the link that I'm more concerned about. So how does a company like Denny's or like Steve's, you know, actually take something of value from the institute? And I think that's going to be a challenge. There's no question about it.
From a small business standpoint, it really, existing small businesses, it may not be the patented IP that's important. When we talk about the TRLs going from 2 to 7.
Can you say what a TRL is?
Technical readiness level. And it's the same end of it in the manufacturing readiness level. I believe that taking existing best of from one industry and applying it to an industry that's not using those best of technologies, and there's no IP problem with any of that, it's all established, but it's absolutely new technology for the thousands and thousands and thousands of existing small businesses. So, yes, I agree that there's an IP problem that exists in the patent world, and that all has to get shared. But again, from an existing manufacturing standpoint, it really is bringing the technologies that already exist, the people, the processes, down to the small business, small, medium enterprises that are out there.
Thank you for that great question, because I think there is two practical ways that this can be attacked. One is that there are proprietary exchange agreements that we commonly put in place with either universities or other entities that allow the sharing of proprietary data amongst us when we're doing joint exploration. So those are one key elements that we want to have an institute be involved in brokering. But another is universities, for instance, realize the importance of industry-funded research as part of what they do, and an increasing number are showing willingness to do, let's call a master agreement with institutions, where you strike a master agreement, even though it may not be easy, you work out the IP issues, and then once you've got that done, you can just go from task order to task order to be able to sponsor work. And so those can be two frameworks that help address that, so that each and every time we're not faced with some IP issue that would come through an institute.
And I can just say that in SRC's experience, there was early on a lot of contentious discussion. Again, we were negotiating with universities. It was right after my dole had passed. There was a lot of confusion, I think, and learning going on. We had a team come together with leadership from the academic community and from the industry and say, here's what I care about, here's what I care about, and let's agree upon what our sort of minimum basic IP terms are going to be, and those are the ones we use to this day. So I think up front is important to have those conversations, get what you need, and don't worry about getting everything you want, perhaps, to make it go forward. And again, the longer term the horizon, I think the easier it's going to be.
Yes, sir.
My name is Dave Harding with Architect. Just a quick question. Of course, these are long-term investments, and of course, right now there's a request for $1 million for support program. How long does this panel believe that support will continue to be required to keep the individual IMIs going, or how long should it take, or should we expect for the IMIs to become self-supporting?
Well, Rob and I are having an ongoing conversation about this. I think you said 10 years for Semitech. So, I mean, think something on that horizon. But there may be some virtue in having a continuing public role from the point of view of making the institutes function. There's a danger, I think, that they'll get pulled to do very short-term things. So, if it could be set up such that there's an ongoing stream, and we do see this in other countries, that's the model that they've generally adopted. I would love to see them operate perfectly in a long-term context supported by non-governmental sources, but there may be some sectors where that's just not realistic.
I guess the question is, how long do we fund universities for? The answer is in perpetuity, we hope, because they're doing work that is inherently has large externalities and spillovers. And there is even with this, I think David's right, that in the ideal world you want to just make more and more of this. But there's still a core part of that work that's just stuff that industry just doesn't want to fund, or it's too far out. And without that, the institutes will tend to focus shorter term. And I think we don't want that. We don't want that only, I should say. We want a mix of a range of time horizon work in an institute. Good example of that is a really great institute in Ohio, in Columbus, used to be called the Edison Welding Institute, now called EWI. EWI does wonderful, very interesting work on metal joining and metal cutting, which again, you wouldn't think there's much innovation. There's an enormous amount of innovation that they're doing for the Army and military and other branches. But one of their challenges is that the projects they tend to get, that they can get money for, tend to be relatively